We took him to a psychiatrist, and within a matter of minutes, yeah, she's ADHD, and here's your drug.
Went on to Medicaid, and 5 minutes later, he was on Zyprexa.
He saw the psychiatrist and prescribed the medicine for 20 minutes.
The guy didn't even look at her. He talked to her a little bit. Now, how can you tell if somebody's ADHD or not ADHD from just a few minutes talking to her?
Next thing I know, I'm getting handed a handful of Xanax. That's how easy it is to get these drugs. Just so easy. It was just passed to me like candy. That's simple.
If a person were to walk in off the street, sit down with a psychiatrist, the chances of him being prescribed a drug before he were to leave the office, I would have to put it at 100%.
Psychiatrists prescribe drugs. They might have different ways of diagnosing, they might have different ways of interacting with a patient, but it's rare to find a psychiatrist that uses no drugs.
The psychiatrists today are, in quotes, admitting they can't cure these mental illnesses, and they're therefore going to manage your illness by using a drug.
50 years ago, a person who was going through a divorce would have relied on family, friends, clergy, and even the family doctor to a certain extent for conversation to work through the issue. They certainly wouldn't have been medicated.
C'était avant l'ère des psychotropes. Les psychiatres, qui avaient le statut le plus bas au sein de la profession médicale, travaillaient presque exclusivement dans des hôpitaux psychiatriques. Sans traitement, ils avaient peu de chances d'être respectés comme véritables médecins par le public et le milieu médical.
Psychiatrists had for years been on the fringe of medicine. Typically, the standard doctor internist would have very low regard for psychiatrists because it was understood not to be a very clear science or art.
Psychiatrists wanted to be viewed as physicians, as doctors, and in order to be viewed as physicians and doctors, the people they dealt with had to be viewed as patients. And if doctors dealt with diseases, then their patients had to be diseased.
Psychiatrists had a wonderful opportunity, they felt, to become respected in the eyes of their peers. They raced to create a whole diagnostic book called the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which was created by consensus.
A group of psychologists and psychiatrists get together, and if they have made common observations, they have a vote and they now classify a new disease. And they give it a number and it graduates into the DSM classification.
And it's a dangerous book. It's a book that has many disorders that could apply to any one of us because the disorders are not real medical diseases. And it's things that apply to nearly all of us at times. Are you afraid of meeting new people? Are you afraid to speak in front of a large crowd of people? Does it make you nervous to go and to talk to your boss about a complaint?
You can invent a mental disorder based on a checklist of symptoms, and that is exactly how the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the billing Bible for psychiatry, works.
Depuis la première édition du DSM en 1952, le nombre de diagnostics n'a cessé de croître. Du livret peu épais de 130 pages énumérant 106 prétendus troubles mentaux, le DSM est devenu un volume de 886 pages. Aux États-Unis, les psychiatres doivent utiliser ce manuel pour faire un diagnostic, prescrire des psychotropes et facturer leurs services. L'industrie psychiatrique utilise actuellement le DSM pour encaisser plus de 72 milliards de dollars des assurances publiques et privées.
The DSM is used to diagnose and then give a label, and the label is used for billing purposes. That's how they get paid.
You have to have a term in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual in order to then call it a disease and treat it as a disease and write a prescription for it.
And so because they can vote it in, they can create, and then the drug industry can just take over and market their drugs for those new disorders.
And those drugs were welcomed by psychiatry leaders because it made us real doctors.
Of course, first the public had to believe that there was something wrong with them, and that that thing wrong was biochemical, and that that could then be treated by a drug which was supposed to cure all.
And so it was relatively easy, I think, to say, well, look, let's start looking at mental illness as fundamentally a matter of chemical imbalance in the brain.
Chemical imbalance is a term that's used as a marketing ploy, as opposed to anything that there's scientific evidence to support.
Nobody has yet measured, demonstrated, or created a test to show that somebody has a chemical imbalance in their brain, period.
How do you market a drug that restores the chemical balance or corrects a chemical imbalance? How can you do that in good conscience if you don't even know what one is?
The whole myth of the chemical imbalance was created to sell drugs.
Et si les psychiatres et les firmes pharmaceutiques ont utilisé ce mythe pour gagner des milliards en procurant des quantités considérables de psychotropes aux consommateurs qui ne se doutaient de rien, ce sont ces derniers qui en subissent les conséquences. On estime que la moitié des Américains qui se suicident sont sous psychotropes. Chaque année, on estime que les psychotropes tuent plus de 2,5 fois plus de gens que les homicides. Et à qui a-t-on confié la tâche de protéger le public contre les dangers de ces psychotropes dangereux? Aux États-Unis, à l'Agence de contrôle pharmaceutique et alimentaire, la FDA, dont le comité consultatif est surtout constitué de psychiatres qui font la navette entre l'industrie pharmaceutique, le milieu universitaire, leur cabinet privé et la fonction publique, ce que l'on appelle le tourniquet.
The revolving door at FDA is one of the primary reasons why the system that we have works so poorly. That revolving door is a direct result of the fact that a group of people with the same mindset are put into positions of being regulators and in the position of being formulators and sellers and marketers.
The panels that are formed by the FDA to evaluate these drugs, the psychiatrists who are on those panels, almost all of them have conflicts of interest where they have directly or indirectly received funding from the very industry and the very parties within the industry whose drugs they are evaluating.